All right, so here I am today at Princeton Day School with junior Kevin Sun. He's 17 years old and he is a phenomenal drawer. So right now, we are looking at one of his pieces from a collection. It's Kevin's interpretation of a MC Escher's lithograph called "Drawing Hands." So Kevin, out of your entire collection of drawings, this one is dated to January 4th of 2013. How did you decide you wanted to pick this drawing to interpret and display?
Well, I think in particular, out of the past few years of all my drawings, I think this drawing is the drawing that I spent the most effort on. I think the meaning behind this drawing is particularly strong, um, in the sense that you have these two hands that are drawing each other. That's something that's really different than all my other sort of works, which are mostly sort of studies of um, realistic interpretations of the world. So yeah.
Right, right. So now is this a certain style of MC Escher or
Well, actually, MC Escher is sort of a very well-known Dutch artist. Um, Sort of, he creates these many sort of lithographs of sort of paradoxical scenes. For instance, many times he'll play with light or vision or sort of these optical illusions. In this case, he's sort of creating something that's impossible, having these hands draw each other. Um, that's sort of one hand drawing the other hand, and it's something that makes you think. So yeah.
right? So you mentioned paradoxes, and that's one of the main identities of this artist and his style. Now, I really enjoy the Churrasco in this piece, the interplay of light and dark, and how it affects the cycle of the hands of the drawing. So what other paradoxes do you think have meaning in this piece?
Well, I think what's really interesting is if you look at the sleeves, they seem almost 2D linear, but then as Escher sort of creates these hands are very realistic. You can see the prominence of the veins. The pencil is very realistic as well. But gradually, as you sort of go down to the wrist, it becomes more 2D, until you get to the sleeve. And it's sort of like these hands are almost coming to life, coming at you in a 3D way. And I definitely tried to emphasize that with the shadow in my sketches. So yeah.
Right, right. So you mentioned the transformation from fictional world to super realism, and the wrinkles, the hands, just a whole general form, and I guess you could consider it contrapposto to an extent in the 2D world. But what do you think this means to the artist as himself? Could it be a metaphor that his hands are his way, his like purpose, not purpose in life, but his just he lives through his hands and his drawings and his work, and that's how he lives on as an artist.
Yeah, I definitely think you could interpret it in that way. Um, Maybe the artist is sort of showing that, well, we're sort of left with the question of whose hands are these? Are these the same person's hands, or are they drawing themselves, or is this one person drawing another person? There's definitely like a lot of open-ended interpretation to this work, in that sense.
Yeah, because there's definitely a lot of viewer interaction, and when you look at it from your own perspective, they can as if be your own hands, which is very interesting.
Yeah.
It's a connection between the artist and the viewer himself or herself. So now I know this is an interpretation of the work. Is there any differences between the two pieces of your version and the original?
My version is pretty much uh, sketched out so that it resembles Escher's work, sort
Okay,
of exactly.
right. But it
As
still has your certain drawing technique
Yes,
displayed in it, right?
yes, because in my drawing technique, I like to emphasize like to emphasize the shadows, definitely with different shades of pencil. Particularly working with drawing pencils, you have the softer shades, the so-called B pencils, which are
Yeah,
softer
and then it
shades.
leads to 2B, the darkest.
Yeah, and then you also have harder shades, H and stuff like that. So I really enjoy working in this softer shades. That contrast in color is really what makes things sort of pop in that way.
Yeah, that brings up an interesting point. What was your inventory towards this project? What did you use? And also, did you first sketch it and then start interlaying a lot of detail? Or did you just like work your way across the page?
Well, I think starting off with the materials, I used this sort of quality drawing board, um, sort of given to me by Mr. Briquette, and then I had a set of Bristol
Yeah.
board, and then I had a set of drawing pencils. These pencils, like I said, range from B, which is soft, to like H, which is sort of hard and light.
Right.
So yeah, it allows for artists to sort of get a lot more variation in texture and color than if I were to just use a plain old regular HB pencil. Um, in terms of I pretty those were the only materials I sort of used to create the piece. The how I work basically as an artist is I'll start off with very lightly, typically with just a normal pencil. I'll start out with the outline of the sketch, and then sort of I'll move into. I sort of like to sort of create, like, see like these shadows. I like to really emphasize those first, and then sort of work with the darkest, and then go on to the lightest. So
Right. Yeah, it brings a lot more emotion and contrast. Just a
yeah.
much more powerful impact to the piece.
Mhm.
So, Kevin, just one last question before we finish up. Now, throughout history, there are a lot of artistic movements such as surrealism, realism, impressionism. Now, your artistic piece here and Escher's kind of artistic style paradoxes and realism. Now, it's almost like a threshold or just a crossroads between realism, superrealism, and surrealism. So, if you could name a style to this individual movement, what would it be? You could give it some thought.
Well, speaking of sort of the surreal and the real, I think this piece I would sort of consider it almost like a hybrid state of, like having a realistic and supernatural, or sort of realistic and sort of simplistic combination. So I would call it mm, hybridism.
Hybridism. That works. Definitely explains part of it. All right. Well, thank you, Kevin. Thank you very much.